Welcome everyone to the Tesla Beat podcast number 52. I guess that's a full year of episodes, even though we started this podcast back, I think in March of 2023. So insane to see, how far we've gotten. And finally, I think, we've had some personal things going on for all of us in the past couple of weeks. So it's nice to have the full staff on board. But so first off, how's everyone doing?
Perfect.
Good.
Yeah, no complaints. I have a Cybertruck. I don't know if anybody knew that, but true story.
We couldn't ignore it.
I don't have a Cybertruck. I'm sure anybody knew that.
And I think
what's happening? Jeff gets the last one.
Okay. I'm glad Joe and John and everyone else who's gotten theirs have it.
I wonder if Tesla just doesn't like you after all the videos that went viral in Chicago, and they're like blacklisting Chicago.
That whole area.
Or have you seen any even in your area? Like, are they even delivering in there yet?
You don't see them out on the street, but they are definitely being delivered in Chicago.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay. Yeah, I had a buddy. I'm not sure if I can share yet, but they just got one of the first ones in New York City. So, it's just like insane.
Crazy to think about the markets. I saw last night. I didn't put this in the deck, but there was a something Sawyer had posted. The next wave of invites went out for a foundation series. I was like, dang.
Yeah, I wonder how many they're gonna make at this point. I mean, I don't. It feels like
as long as people pay $20,000 more, may as well make them, right?
I initially thought, this was my initial thought, was that they would offer blanket everybody with a foundation series, and then whoever didn't, they would just roll them back for. But I think you got to at least offer it to people, because you don't know. I mean, you can't just cut it off, because you're going to end up upsetting somebody who's like, I was a reservation holder since blah blah, and I wanted a foundation series. Never even got the offer, like the poor people who never got the FSD trial.
True. Talk about it. That's me. Okay.
Really?
That's me. But it's coming. Wow. Yeah, I'm on 2024.8.9, but apparently it's coming. I checked again this morning, haven't gotten it yet, and we'll follow Jeff's advice to drive this afternoon to the service center. Just say hi to my friends there and hope that it
connects to the Wi-Fi.
The Tesla Wi-Fi there, and maybe that makes it.
Jeff, you should also go to the service center and give them your email and make sure that your Cybertruck is still on the list.
I'm going to tell them Joe sent me.
Yeah, we should do a hashtag.
No, you gotta say
Jeff's Cybertruck.
Right.
Someone get this man a Cybertruck.
Go.
All right.
Exactly.
So
no thanks. Just kidding.
The Tesla stock is down a total of 32% to about 170 this week from 180. I think the pump a little bit that happened last week from the FSD China news. So just a quick update there. And then I thought some interesting nods that happened this week, whether it was Elon liking something or really just a comparison that happened with Tesla versus Waymo. There was a tweet that Elon had liked. I think Elon is pivoting Tesla from selling cars to selling rides, and the resulting value creation will be unlike anything the world has ever seen. There's that, along with Sawyer. Shout out to Sawyer for putting out a tweet. Tesla's fleet is driving 375 times more miles on FSD per day than Waymo's fleet is driving, which is insane. But I don't know if either one of you or all of us saw this week. Was there any thoughts that you had or things that come to mind? I mean, we do know, obviously, we know that Elon is very focused on FSD and Optimus right now, and obviously becoming more and more of an AI company, and they're making big changes over the past couple of weeks, and I think it may go all the way through June. I know some friends there that unfortunately are waiting to hear more in June about how their roles could potentially be impacted. But any thoughts or pivots as these kind of tweets have kind of been coming out?
Yeah, I don't have anything to really say on it other than I mean, what Tesla has done versus what Waymo and everybody else has done, you can you can kind of see a fundamental shift that's got to happen. Like these companies, I mean, you saw it with Ford announcement and stuff like that. You realize that these people aren't at Tesla's level, and to even think that they're even close is kind of a joke at this point.
Yep.
I just say quickly, I think the Robo Taxi business model is going to be interesting. And that's what I'm looking forward to on 8.8. Is it, is at some point, is it going to transition to, instead of it being kind of an MSRP, to here's a cost per mile that you can buy this vehicle for? That will be interesting. Why is Tesla, not allowing the 3s and the Ys off a lease to be purchased? It's just interesting to just try to understand like how all this comes together and what the business model will be. That'll be what I'll be watching for on 8.8.
Yeah, and I would like to add, it's astonishing how confident Elon is on this point. I mean, we all hate the news about the layoffs, and if there are more to come, it's even, it's heartbreaking for us watching, and I mean, obviously, even more for the people that are concerned. But it is impressive how confident he is in this switch and how he executes it on all levels, and how this is going. I mean, we're watching probably the biggest shift in an industry ever, because the car industry hasn't shifted. I'm always making the joke that their big revolutions was when the cup holder size changed, right? Now we're
Horrible.
right, and so what's happening, what's going to happen the next 3 to 6 months is so major and will change the way cars are built, but also cars are used, and will change the image of our cities. I mean, we just talked about somebody getting the Cybertruck in New York. New York in 30 to 50 years won't have the same traffic, won't have the same issues, and any other major city. So there's so much going to happen, and it's such a privilege to be here and to watch it. And when sometimes your feelings get hurt, or you feel looks brutal, or doesn't look how you would have managed it, it's probably the best for the cause.
Yeah, and I would actually, just adding on to what you're saying, Alexandra, I would say almost this is probably the second biggest change we've seen. First was going EV, right? Because, GM had the EV1 and all that other stuff. But going gas to electric has been a huge shift, and we've seen it. And more importantly, even more than electric, is becoming software first based. And then, as you are saying now, I think that next big shift is going to happen right before our eyes. And I think the crazy thing is that all of these companies are actually starting to go back to hybrids or back to their ICE vehicles. And what is that going to do in the long run? Unless these companies start creating a software first based car, they will be so far behind that they will not be able to catch up. And next thing you know, maybe Tesla's licensing, the frame of their vehicles to the software, it's just these companies are really sticking their head in a hole and not getting the message. So even if they stayed ICE, they need to make it a software-based first company and change their business model altogether. All right, Jeff, I'm going to put you on the spot, since you got a response this morning from Elon on obviously fake news. But can you tell us, what was the news that was breaking? And then obviously how did Elon speak to it when he responded to you?
Yeah, there's activists, again, and demonstrating around, the factories. I guess it's National Protest Week in that area or in that region, and Elon, and some of the news media was like showing like people running and like storming a fence, and Elon's like, nobody's, where there's multiple layers of fencing around the factory. The factory's fine. Everything's good. I mean, that to me, that's the highest order bit, that the factory and the people that work there in the factory are well and doing okay. But what's driving these things? No one's honestly really clear. Like, what problem are they ultimately trying to solve? and yeah, it's just not clear what's going on. Yeah, so I was basically like, look, Tesla knows what to do in these situations. I still think the government, should have a sufficient amount of pressure. I mean, these world leaders are coming to Elon asking for investment, and a natural thing in response would be is like, when I build out a major multi-billion-dollar facility, that my employees and my factories are safe and from this. And again, it's okay for people to protest peacefully. That's fine. But it's not even clear what they're protesting. Like, what's the messaging? What problem are we trying to solve? So yeah, that's Tesla's fine. Tesla's operational. But there's definitely kind of unrest in the areas. This is National Protest Week.
Yeah, so I think just to confirm again, this was fake news. If you're seeing this on the, I feel like I'm running a news station right now. But yeah, this was fake news. Looks like there was activists breaking through a couple layers of fencing for the Gigafactory. And funny enough, I should be doing potentially a tour out there in a couple weeks. So I was like, oh no, I guess the tour's not going to happen. But either way, that is not really happening. It looks like it's National Protest Week, as Jeff was saying. So again, if you're just tuning in, Elon responded to Jeff about this, and this is not, as bad as it seems. And it sounds like it's just literally activists that are protesting during National Protest Week. So some other breaking news this week. FSD has been around, since almost 3.5 years now. And, one of the biggest things that you have to, and if you've never tried FSD, you have to, every like 30 seconds, 15 seconds, you have to engage with the steering wheel and give it a tug. And so that was obviously one of the human inputs that you have to have over the next like 30 to 60, every like 15 to 30 seconds, you'd have to do that. So it's like human engagement. But it sounds like from what Elon has confirmed that you will not, with FSD supervised 12.4, you will not need to have the nag anymore. So, which I think once that happens, there will be drives where there is no human engagement at all, which is going to be pretty mind blowing. But yeah, I thought that's a huge step forward. It's showing not only is progress being made, but more importantly, it's a bold statement. So I'm not sure how this will impact regulation or anything, if there's going to be issues with that. But more importantly, I'm really excited for this. What was your guys' thoughts when you saw that this week?
I mean, I can start. I think this, and we'll get into. I mean, I think Tesla's got kind of a preview, like many weeks or months in advance, in terms of the functionality and performance that we'll experience once the build actually gets out to customers. And I think, and Alexandra alluded to this earlier, the kind of the confidence you hear in Elon. We're driving a build that was probably trained off of models, from months ago, and now they're not compute constrained, and they've got internal test suites and things they run on these builds to understand how they're performing and their ability to kind of crush these edge cases. And so I just think Tesla is seeing much further ahead in terms of how these builds will perform. Now, one of the questions I would have on this build without the nag, like, I'm assuming the cabin camera is still working, and the question is, do you have to be looking forward? Because if I look down slightly for a second, that thing's beeping, and then you've got to do something. So I'll be interested to understand like how that interaction is going to work, if anything. But it just really shows you the whole system's maturing, and this will, from a user perspective, this will take it, kind of, I think, to a new level. I would recommend that users still have the ability to respond and control the vehicle. I still think this is, unless there's a new designation, I still think this is a driver assist system until Tesla says otherwise. And users of the system should be ready to to brake or manage the wheel or yoke as needed, would be my advice.
Yeah. Alexandra, Joe, any response to Jeff or thoughts?
I mean, I I'm still on version 11. So can you imagine when we get the
Oh, no.
update for the 2024? We may go straight there from V11 to no nag. This is going to be fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm really excited. I have not been, because my wife has we have the latest Model X that we picked up about a month and a half ago, and I have not been driving on V12 as much. I've done it a couple of times, but I'm looking forward to this with no nag. So it's gonna be a huge update. So I mean, especially if you're on V11.4.9 or whatever you're on right now, it should be a big step up.
Yeah, it's going to be a game changer for sure.
All right. So one other thing that happened this week, also too, was another bot update. I feel like, and I created our team created a video that just kind of showcases September of 2022 versus May 2024. And you literally see the Tesla bot in the factory doing what humans would do, and they're already starting to test these things. And so I think it's just I mean, even in September of 2022, I mean, they created the bot. I think they started that team like 6 months before in early 2022. So it's crazy to think that how fast this team is accelerating and what they're capable of doing. I mean, now you're seeing them do a video across the factory or inside
all those bots.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is going to be, especially for some of the stuff where they do testing with battery cells and stuff like that, that is not really kosher for humans, and you don't have to like gear up and all the garb and stuff. It's going to be crazy. So I thought this was really cool, but I don't know if you both watched, all of us watched the full video, but when you see these updates, what are you thinking? What comes to mind? Or what do you get excited about?
Well, I mean, just looking at the end of the year sorry, Alex, that I just want to say real quick, like looking at the end of the year for Bumblebee, right? And like how that was like off the shelf parts, and then it's like just a short while later and what they have accomplished. I mean, like the rate of progress is insane. And I'm just really impressed at how many bots they have. I wonder how, I know Jeff might speak to this, but I'm curious as to how they're going to manufacture these robots. Like, what's that process he's going to look like when it comes like on the scale? Because he's already talking about like next year being able to sell them. You know what I mean? So I just wonder like how quickly that supply chain is ramped up and stuff.
Yeah, I think they're going to go from dozens. I mean, maybe a dozen, 2 dozens in this prototyping phase. It all depends, and then to hundreds, and then they'll probably build, I would say, a couple thousand before they get into production. It's a question of, Elon alluded to a new hand coming later in the year. How much do you want to build before that? How much do you want to build after that? How modular is that hand replacement? Does it go all the way up the arm, or all the different controls and so forth? So, but yeah, I mean, it's rapidly advancing. My guess is they have this lab running, probably 24 hours a day, and they're bringing people in on shifts because the bots are what's in demand. Like there's only so many of them. So what you need to do is, for the teleoperation, for the training, for the engineering work, for the lab data the technicians are taking, that is what you would want to run. So actually the humans are orbiting the robots, and they're spending, it's like 24 hours a day probably gathering this data and advancing, like what would the next design release look like, and what would we do? What would we fix? In terms of ramp, I actually think that they're going to design this manufacturing operation to be similar to an unboxed model. Let's see what they say, but I think it would be very modular. Like there would be an actuator assembly lines; those would be modules that would be readied, and and then the various pieces of the bot, and then there would be this system level assembly from kind of the torso, spanning out. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it, but I would guess it would be modular in nature and highly vertically integrated. And I think Tesla is really going to get a fairly significant advantage in their ability to manufacture these actuators. And when I look at the other bot companies, it's not clear what their manufacturing proficiencies are, or if they have them, if they have the chops to be able to they understand the challenges ahead. And I'm not saying that they are or they don't, but it's unclear. And just because you partner with a contract manufacturer like a Magna does not mean you've solved your problems. Talk to anybody in the smartphone world from the last 20 years that says, "Oh, I worked with Foxconn or whomever, or to build a product." You have to have the knowledge, the capability, and the resources within your team. You will dictate the ultimate success of that product in high volume manufacturing. The CMs do not, contract manufacturers do not do all the work. So I think Tesla has a real advantage on the manufacturing side, and I'm looking forward to see how they exploit that. Finally, the timing is going to be interesting. When did they say they're at a final design lock? Well, sorry, initial design lock, meaning like this is it. There's no more feature changes on the bot. Like this is the bot that we want to put into production. That will be a milestone that I think we could, once they actually say that, if they say that, then you can really gauge how close they are to production. Because then you go from that initial design lock, you do prototyping, you do some iterations, you get the final design lock, and then you have something you can scale. Now, who knows what they're going to do, but it'd be interesting to see when the bot gets to this initial design lock, the final hand, kind of no more major changes. That's what I'll be looking for.
Yeah, perfectly summed up, Jeff and Joe. I just want to add two things. You're right, Jeff. They're working 24 hours a day. We saw that in those job postings, but we also saw it in that video because this must have been filmed on a Sunday. The office was empty, but this crew was there. The bot walked through the cleaned and empty offices. So this was clearly a weekend shot and shows how motivated these people are. And I'd like to add, Jeff, you're right. They have the manufacturing power, but they also have the use case power. Because there are lots of bots outside, and there will be lots of bots in this world. But Tesla has the immediate manufacturing capacity, but also the immediate use case for thousands and tens of thousands of spots. And that is much different than having an initial contract with BMW for a couple of bots. It's not the same systemic use where you are immediately there improving, fine-tuning, and having the feedback loop to improve. So I'm very excited about the bot, and I actually think that Elon's vision for what we saw earlier for an AI company is, of course, built on self-driving cars, but it is even more built on autonomous bots.
Yeah.
Oh, Jeff, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say it's going to be, to just add on to Alexandra's point, the Tesla, when Tesla's in production on the bot division of Tesla is going to make a sale of a bot. And initially, a lot of these are going to go into Tesla factories. So the Tesla factories are going to be purchasing these bots. But there's going to be a time to break even for both of them. There's going to be a time to break even for bot sales. And there's going to be a time to break even in terms of the capital investment the factory does until the bot overtakes it and says, the money you invested to buy me, I am now actually, returning money back. So it's like Tesla's going to eventually do well on both sides of the equation until they go outwards. It's just interesting tidbit.
Have they said where the robots are going to be built? Is it Austin?
Well, I mean, the initial job postings, and Alexandra has posted these are in Nevada. So, I mean, they could change that.
Crazy. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that obviously they're building the batteries plus the semis is going out there. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think I mean, I'm personally really excited. I mean, I think they're just making they're making huge headwinds. I mean, the fact that they're able to walk by and these things are doing those same tasks. I mean, again, if the robot is already filling spots on the production line or, you know, part of the manufacturing, that, you know, potentially becomes savings. Obviously, they're doing a lot of testing right now, but even if they start putting these and phasing them into certain spots where they can take out the human, I mean, that's going to be, you know, that's going to help with margins. That's going to help with, you know, obviously even people potentially like not getting hurt and other stuff, people on the production line. So it's going to be crazy to think, but yeah, I mean, FSD and Optimus are obviously the two babies right now. So it'll be crazy to see how quickly these things get up and running. Joe, to you.
So yeah, this happened last night. It was like out of nowhere. He just created this this supercharger community, and at first it was just like him, but he actually now has mods. Holmars and Galifar are mods on the on this group. So this is a community for supercharger technology ideas, where the next one's going to be, and all this type of stuff that Elon just put up. And it's like, it's pretty interesting that, I mean, yeah, you get rid of the team, right? But he also knows that you have this whole community of people like us who work for free and do not mind contributing, because we're all investors anyway, or at least most of us are, and we use the products. So why not get the insight and the ideas from these people and have whatever part of the team like implemented? I think this is like one of those Elon things that is big in the way that you can farm this out and you know your community's got you. Like, I don't think Ford could do this. You know what I mean? I don't think BMW or GM or anybody could really like say, hey, could you guys help us with this? You know what I mean? And the community would do it. So I just think like he thinks on another level, and like him doing this last night was just like holy cow, man. Like, you really, I don't know, just like, it just chess moves on chess moves. It's freaking wild.
And did you see there was a question to it? So you had to answer a question. I don't remember exactly what it is. And my second thought after answering, I think I answered of course or whatever, was like, wow, he took the time to build that header, right? Because I mean, we all use Canva and we all do that stuff, but it takes a couple of minutes. So he must have taken the time to build that header to put it up there. I really like that.
Yeah, I thought it was you know, I think, I mean, we talked about this over the past couple of weeks. As companies make big transitions, they will cut teams potentially, and then obviously move those roles over to other teams. And as we know, like, we know what the focus is, where Elon's very laser focused. It's FSD and this bot. And, you know, we also know that the car industry is, you know, not transitioning as fast to, you know, the supercharger or to EVs. And so if that's the case, I mean, again, you could even potentially look at the math. You would look at how many EVs, you know, Tesla has, how many, let's say you turn on every EV in America today. Do you still need to grow at the same rate if these companies are not transitioning to electric vehicles by 2030 anymore? And I think the reality is that, you know, he knows that this is part of the Tesla experience, and, you know, the adoption rate and removing range anxiety is superchargers. So I don't think, you know, by him saying that they're spending $500 million, $500 million on expanding the network, creating thousands of new chargers. I mean, clearly, I mean, I don't know if he's going to hire more people back, or some of them. That's happened before, from when Elon's kind of gone on, you know, when he's laid off whole teams. But there's clearly someone that's going to take care of this. It's not Elon going to jump on and call the city of Burlingame or something and make stuff happen. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting update. And again, now it's crazy. I mean, it's just what Elon's doing now. He's giving the supercharger updates. People are worried that that it's not happening, but it is. So some other big news this week. BP wants to refill your EV. So shout out to Herbert. Looks like oil giant BP is looking to buy Tesla supercharger sites in the US. BP's electric charging unit is keen on buying Tesla supercharger sites in the United States. BP is aggressively looking to acquire real estate to scale our network, which is a heightened focus following the recent Tesla announcement. And this is from the CEO of BP Americas. Was this a shock when you heard this? Is this news to you? I mean, I think, yeah. What are your thoughts on when you heard this news?
I've always been a proponent of, we have, like, in any given city, like 10 to 15 gas stations. Like why do you need only 1 or 2 superchargers per city? So I've always been a fan of the fact that if only the gas stations got involved. I mean, they have electricity, they have areas that aren't being utilized all the time. Like, you have parking stalls where you could have like 3 to 4 or even like 10 stalls set up at any gas station. And so it was just like, and plus you have a customer that's going to be there longer. You know what I mean? Like, you're looking at 5 minutes to fill up versus 20 minutes on average for an EV. Like, that person's going to shop more and spend more money. Like, again, I mean, the math just works in my head. I just can't believe it's taken so long for like companies to like come around to it. But for them to see that this is a foothold for them to get into is, I think it's smart on BP. I think Shell is also like one of the companies that's like really early on. Circle K, I know that did some things too, but kudos to BP for jumping on this. Like, oh, you got rid of your supercharger team? We need superchargers. It's freaking awesome.
Just to say quickly, I think it's a hedge for BP. I mean, they spend many times this, obviously, in oil and gas, and I think it's important for them that, this propulsion technology is coming, and people need energy, and they're in the business of providing energy. So I think this starts as a hedge, and then they see where it goes. A hedge is like basically another play you put on that's kind of on the other side of your portfolio where you're betting. And so I think this is an area that they need to serve, and they need to have a hedge on, and then they'll see how it goes from here. I'm interested to understand. We don't know what this announcement is, by the way. Like, we haven't seen anything from Tesla. We haven't seen any kind of like joint letterhead, like announcement of like, we're doing this together or that together. So this could be BP just saying, hey, look, we want to be more aggressive with real estate and with setting up charging. And finally, with all the movements Tesla's made with supercharging, what they haven't lost is their design and manufacturing capability to produce these at very high margins. And we see this in terms of when they're in a bidding, when they're in a bid against other competitors, they seem to be winning, by 3 to 7 times what the competitive bids are. And they have great performance. They have a great brand. So there's tremendous leverage here. And I think the note or the messages from Elon last night of like, hey, look, we're still at like 500 million. This is BP's saying 500 million or $1 billion, I think, over multiple years. And Tesla's like, we're going to do that like this year still. So Tesla's still investing. It's still important to them. They have the brand. And I see this. I see there will be many of these eventual partnerships. We don't know what this is yet, but I believe there will be many partnerships on the charging side, because there isn't, when you have the unit economics and you have the performance right together, that's a tough combination to beat.
Well, keep in mind too that in 2023, oil subsidies were like $7 trillion. This is a drop in a bucket for like BP to put money into this. Like,
yeah. I wanted to stress that. I mean, $1 billion is absolutely nothing. This is $1 billion up to 2030. This is higher step than what they initially did last fall. Remember, they started with I think it was 100 million. So this is now perpetuating that over 6 years from 100 million to 1 billion. So this is not a huge deal. It's nice. It's nice to have. And you're completely right, Jeff. For them, it's a hedge. May as well put the foot there. And they've seen the opportunity because suddenly there are 500 the best engineers, the best team in supercharging on the job market. And they're saying, look, come to us. So that's a very, aggressive recruiting technique, but good on them. And the second point is there may be sites that Tesla is now not developing, and they are after these sites because that's going to be it. I mean, real estate, especially land where you can get the permitting to set these up, is a commodity like anything else. And so they're being more proactive than others. So I give them that. They're also having multitude of issues. I mean, obviously being in the oil industry, but also with their current franchisees who are seeing their numbers at the pumps going down and making less profit than they had in the good old days. So they have to move into alternatives. And while it's nice to see, I wouldn't hype this. I really, it is what it is. The 100 million deal didn't excite me. This one doesn't excite me over 6 years either. But good on them to manifest it and maybe grab some of those good Tesla people that are now on the market.
Sorry, what was the company that said, "Hey, we'll hire you"? Was it BP or was it Ford?
Well, BP was after them, but I think there are quite a lot of them actually out there. On the job site on LinkedIn, you see a couple of people reaching out to the former Tesla employees. So I mean, these are desired people. These are people who have worked, especially for the supercharging team, have worked for the best of the best. I mean, there's the gap between Tesla supercharging and anything out there is enormous. So, and I agree with you, John. I do believe some of the people that were let go are going to be rehired. I mean, it just looks a little bit short-sighted, the whole thing, how it was organized, but that just comes with disruption. And when you have a management team that sometimes, goes maybe above board, but those that are looking for a job, believe me, they will have no problem finding a job, and good for them because they deserve that.
Obviously, I don't have like a cost sheet in front of me or like a price list comparison, but I'm actually surprised, with more and more more and more companies adopting the NACS. I'm surprised that there's not more, let's say, oil companies or even, oil companies or other, let's say, I mean, we've heard of like Starbucks and Volvo and, all these random partnerships that are going on, but I'm surprised more haven't come to Tesla outside of maybe this BP kind of like rumor or article that just came out, because I would assume that buying, a 250 kilowatt, charging stall is going to be cheaper with Tesla than probably anything out there if you went to versus a charge point or somewhere else. But I have been to gas stations where, it'll say Chevron, but then like, there's like a small logo for like charge point. So, but you haven't, I mean, this is the first time more of like heard a little bit more about an oil company, doing work with Tesla, but I'm surprised there's not more of that now, but again, I don't have a cost sheet. I don't know, Jeff, if you have any thoughts on that or, but I would assume that this could be a huge business, especially as we potentially transition and continue to move on. Obviously, a lot of that has slowed down, but yeah.
Yeah, no, they're clearly cost and performance leaders. That's what a lot of the competitive bidding has shown, at least in kind of the Western, playing fields, right? So, manufacturing in the U.S., manufacturing Western Europe, or deployment in Western Europe, they've got an advantage. I mean, it's not in China. I think all bets are off. But in terms of, the U.S. and Western Europe, they've got a cost and performance advantage, and they're in good shape.
Definitely. All right. Next slide, Joe, to you.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting because They made this announcement last week at the TSMCs. So I'm really curious from Jeff to find out like what this means for like the supply chain. And I know they're doing some stuff at Giga Texas that Joe Chetmeyer was talking about and stuff like that. But holy cow, man! Like everybody's already been saying, right? Like Alexandra pointed out, like his confidence is here. You're like, and you can see it in all the moves he's making and all the things he's doing. Like his confidence is so up on everything that's happening with the whole infrastructure and the vehicles and everything. And now you find out information like this. It's just like, it's like, dang, man. Like there's just a lot. There's a lot happening. A lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, I don't think Tesla wants to publicize this too much because they've got the Uber thing that they have to do is they've got to get compute power to solve their training needs. So, and this network infrastructure is complex. Not all training is the same. Some training is done better on certain GPUs and certain systems, and some training's done better on others. Is a kind of a simple way to describe it. So I think Tesla is going to continue advancing their own network infrastructure. It's not clear to me if they're going to get to like their own end-to-end complete solution, everything. They've got to clearly have a procurement relationship with NVIDIA, and they want to continue ramping that up. And so I don't think Tesla's going to publicize this too much because, when GPUs are still on some level of global allocation, the wait times have improved, but now there's the next one. Now there's the 200 series from NVIDIA, and then there's another one that they're working on as well. There's some variants that they're working on, and you want to, those ramps are all going to be constrained for a period of time. So Tesla wants to be as close to the front of those queues as possible. So I don't think they're going to publicize this too much, but this is a big deal. Again, Tesla does the own inference in their car. They design that silicon. They do the software for it. They fab that out. I think it's at Samsung in terms of fab. And in terms of Dojo, this system on wafer that they're doing this with TSMC. This would be the network infrastructure side. This would be the training side. So right now, if you look at Tesla today versus other people that make cars, okay, it's not clear that any of them have an outsourced network infrastructure, or certainly they don't have their own their own inference chip in the car. So Tesla is, the lead is, like I said this morning, I think on X, they can probably start measuring their lead in decades in terms of where they're going on some of this stuff. That's not to say that that's forever. That's not to say that that NVIDIA can't eventually link up with a partner on the automobile side and start accelerating their solution. But Tesla's got a formidable lead. People are just not aware of they have the solution in the vehicle. They're working on the training side, and this will ramp up throughout this year, and it'll be interesting to see how they layer this in. But again, it's just like batteries. They're going to still have to procure from multiple vendors, but this gives Tesla a kind of a significant competitive leverage. Probably would help them on pricing too eventually as well.
But this is saying a lot, right? For Tesla to, because I know that that this was that conference that the chip makers they made the announcement first, because they were having this conference and they were talking about what they're doing and everything else, and they didn't really say who they work with, but everybody knows that they work with Tesla, right? So, but knowing what Dojo has to do and knowing what they have already set up, like this has got to be like, if you're a GM and you know what you have and you know what you had to give up, with Cruise and everything else that fell by the wayside, you got to be looking at this like, dang, we can't catch these guys.
Yeah. There's going to be a time, an investment, and an engineering lead that will be difficult to catch. But again, if someone like an NVIDIA goes into a deep partnership, right now they're kind of spread amongst dozens of automakers, and everybody's kind of working towards a solution. So I'm not in the camp that Tesla is going to be the only company that solves full self-driving, but I think the gap may be growing in terms of the time between them and somebody else. And again, it's not just about solving full self-driving. This is where I think a lot of the analysts get tripped up. It's about global scalability, both in volume, in like number of vehicles, and the unit economics that support it. Right now, it's not clear that any of these robo taxi services that are out there have an economic solution that actually scales, both at their current volumes today or even at mass scale. And if it does, it's going to be one of those situations like there's a smartphone manufacturer today that has 38 to 42% gross margins, and then there's everybody else that's less than half that. And it may be some situation like that. But you have to look at the economics, and you have to look at the ability to volume scale. And this is something that you can't just like flip on overnight. Like this is like Tesla started designing this inference chip probably in 2016, 2017. Like this is years in the making.
Sorry for not highlighting you sooner. That was must have. Yeah, no, I think it's it's going to be exciting. I mean, I think Jeff, you're right as far as it's not just even if you one company, let's say that you found one company like Waymo, they solve full self-driving, they could drive anywhere with their vehicles. Imagine now them trying to put it in another vehicle that doesn't communicate to each other, that's not vertically integrated, or more importantly, in a different type of vehicle that's either bigger or smaller. But I think those will be, huge gaps that they'll have to solve, because a lot of the stuff that they're doing is actually, solved for like specific cities to deal with specific roads in a specific sized vehicle. I mean, and actually just, probably a nice tie-in would actually be, partially why, Elon and Tesla are not prioritizing the Cybertruck. It's because 99% of the vehicles on the road need, to continue to feed the system, train the system. Yeah, exactly. Like hopefully, shout out to Alexandra. Anyone from the autopilot team listening, make sure you send Alexandra V12. But with that said, I mean, as much as it stinks to have the Cybertruck, I would say, thankfully, I walked into buying my foundation series knowing that it wasn't going to have FSD. Like, they had been already delivering vehicles for about a month and a half before I got mine. And so, that would have been a huge bummer expecting it and then not having it, but I already knew that walking in. But it makes sense for them to scale up, the 3, the Y, the S, and the X because the Cybertruck will, as we know, it's a different build because of how big the vehicle is, how how it really just changed, the turning radius with, again, a lot of the build on just how the vehicles run, steer by wire. It's just a different, not necessarily I guess it's just a different kind of platform. So I thought that was interesting. And obviously with that, there was a big Cybertruck update this week with, and shout out to Joe and Jeff, if you guys would have changed your order to get the tactical gray interior. But it looks like, they had announced a couple of just changes on this. But would you have changed your mind?
I wouldn't personally. Yeah, and those wheels are freaking hideous. But I know, as I posted online, like there's some people that aren't really about the aesthetic. They really are about range. And I know for a lot of people, range is like a big deal. So I know those wheels are going to work fine for a lot of people.
All right. So I thought one thing we typically haven't done in the past was like have a boots on the ground join live during our session. So Jan from Tesla Fix, he's been on the show before. I've been on his show, and I think actually I wouldn't be surprised if all of us have been on his channel. But he lives in Germany, and so I thought it would be really cool to have someone boots on the ground. We obviously know Elon responded to Jeff earlier and kind of threw down the fake news. But Jan, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
Doing good. Well, so thanks for joining super last minute. But can you just tell us about what is going on at Giga Berlin or in Germany right now?
Yeah, it's. I can maybe summarize it a little bit because those protests or this protest week, it is really like this, that around May 1st, there are protests more and more in Germany, especially labor protests or from that direction. This means also left-leaning a little bit. So, or a little bit is good, is decent to say, I would say. So this is very common and year over year, but to the extent that we are seeing it here now with Tesla as a target, it's a little bit different because those protests, especially the left-leaning people from the left-leaning political spectrum, especially from the Antifa side, I would say from the north, it's very common there to protest, and the way to protest is a little bit more radical. That's something. And it's mostly to, pardon my French, but F things up and stir chaos, actually. So
does anybody protest? Sorry, Jan, to interrupt you. Does anybody protest to any other car maker, or is it just Tesla?
So yes, there were also protests with other car makers, but not right now. The focus is really much on Tesla right now. That's because it's actually not an eco-protest like they claim. It's more or less, it's just an anti-capitalist movement that hates evil billionaire Elon Musk, kind of. And that's what I read through the lines when I see also the news and everything, is that actually it's about anti-capitalism. It's about anarchy as well. So anarcho anti-capitalist, I would point into that direction. And the funny thing actually is, because I read this all the time on X, especially from the US, people from the US always say, who's funding these people? Who's behind this? And the thing is, it would be, it's not even so difficult to wrap your head around that. It's mostly, they are financed by our social system. Most of the time, they are students most of the time, which rely heavily on heavily subsidized student loans that are subsidized by the state. So in the end, actually, workers pay that they can protest because many of them don't have a job, or some of them have a job, but they also rely heavily on the money from the state, actually, or are in jobs that are more financed by the state, if that makes sense. So cultural jobs in the cultural sector, for example, those sectors that are heavily subsidized. And in Germany, we pay so much taxes, and that's kind of who finances them. And of course, there are still some groups that finance specifically some, I don't know, some groups or some. Also, additionally, to organize these events or something like this. Yeah, so
I think you're making a very good point. In France, I lived 24 years in France, and France obviously is the country of protests.
Yes.
So we always said, it's only those that don't have a 40 plus hour work week that have time to protest. And that just proves right all the time. You have to have the time to protest, and people that are doing a normal job or are doing multiple jobs or are feeding a family, they have no time to protest. They have time to work. That's just a fact. And it's a little bit the excess of our society now, right? By being gracious and generous, you cultivate people that have time and then break and protest and just go against anything that they should cherish. It drives me. It really makes me mad. But there we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this will also have consequences because we are about to have European elections here in Germany as well. So that's why I think the police is a little bit more hesitant. Also, the protests in Hamburg that we had a few years ago, there were bigger ones for the G8, I think, or G9 summit that was there, or G20 it was. Sorry. It's interesting to see how this develops because it's kind of, we're in a phase where it's about to be elections, so they're very careful with police brutality here. They're really as kind of let it go through, so to de-escalate a little bit in that sense. I don't know what they're doing, but I think it doesn't make sense in the long run because targeting Tesla makes absolutely no sense since LEAG is also in the region, and LEAG is the one that uses 100 times more water than Tesla, for example. And even asparagus farms use more water than Tesla, and nobody's protesting asparagus farms. So
what do you think at some point will, I mean, because it sounds like this is kind of like, again, it sounds like they didn't break through or go as far. There's some fake news to this a little bit. But at what point will either, the government kind of or even the local police step in to like make sure that this doesn't get out of hand even further?
That's difficult. Germany is very hesitant with a strong police or strong policing in that sense because they have a fear about the repercussions that they might look bad, especially when they are conservative elects in the region. So they might be, this was way too brutal what they did. But it's a balance act because the separation of the political spectrum in Germany is also very prevalent. People tend more to be more left-leaning or more right-leaning, even more and more. And this will kind of, it's a power struggle almost. And it's interesting that we don't have like a common ground anymore. And many things that doesn't even make sense anymore. So like the agenda that they have, for example, it doesn't make sense. If you have lignite mines there that use more water, for example. So difficult situation.
One question I would have is like how long, I mean, because who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, but how long will this protesting go for? Where, I mean, like, do you think we're going to hear more and more about them trying to get through like Tesla's gates over the next coming weeks, or is this just kind of like a one-off?
So it depends. I would say if the police force, for example, would be very strict and forceful, and I mean those are more than 800 people. That's a huge number for Germany as well. And if you are too strict with them, this might stir even more chaos because those people radicalize themselves then after this. And so it's a very, very nuanced balance act. So I think this will go on a little bit longer even because anti-capitalism is the target here, not eco-protest or an eco-protest or eco-activism. It's about that an evil billionaire from the US is opening up shop there to suppress the people there. That's the narrative kind of. And that's absolutely ridiculous if you see the great things happening in the regions, like more playgrounds being built, daycares being built, infrastructures being built. So this is all on the back of Tesla kind of because many suppliers also moved there as well, and the whole region grew. So it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, Tesla has been known for like every one person that they hire, they end up hiring an additional 10 through suppliers and other people that end up working. So as I've even seen Tesla, the impact Tesla has had, especially on, various, like different types of people, especially in the Fremont area and really the Bay Area and the broader Bay Area. People are commuting an hour and a half from like Central California to come and work, at the Tesla factories. And what I've even seen in SpaceX in Brownsville, how that whole area is changing. With the amount of jobs that, again, these companies are bringing and how the community overall is benefiting from, these big companies there. But yeah, I wanted to pose it to put it back to Joe or Jeff or Alexandra. Any other questions we have for Jan specifically on these protests?
I just think that's a really good insight, because I was under the impression, like Jan was saying earlier, that it was like a funded campaign, you know what I mean? Not conspiracy hat type, but just like man, like who gets behind these type of things? And it's just kind of interesting. Like, I imagine this probably happens to Jan for us here in America. It's like, no, it's not happening like that. But but now we know, like, it's just wild. The whole thing is just bizarre. And just knowing, well, of course, they're not really thinking about this because it's like National Campaign Week or whatever. But just knowing that so many jobs and so many lives are impacted positively by what Tesla does when they come into a city or into a country. And this is why you end up with all these leaders, these world leaders that are just trying to come together and get Tesla, because they realize, like, this is a buildup for their community and for their infrastructure, and for, like Jeff knows, supply chains and everything that trickles down from that. So even like tier 6 suppliers can benefit from something like this. So it's wild to think that you would want to negatively impact that.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that I think Tesla was actually very wise to give their staff today off. So yesterday was a bank holiday in Germany, if I remember right. Obviously, tomorrow is the weekend. So for somebody who worked at Tesla from Wednesday evening to Monday morning, they were off, which Reuters used straight away to headline that Giga Berlin is closing for 4 days, which obviously is not true. It closed for 1 day, for the Friday. But I think that was a very wise decision, because this now means, there's no confrontation. There is no worker going to his job in his car, being stopped by these people, or being, interrupted in his path to go there, or in and out, whatever. It's just, I think that was the easiest way. They're walking in the fields. They're having their picture sessions. They're putting it out on their Antifa X accounts. I mean, isn't it hilarious? Does X that even allows them to post? Yes, it does. So free speech, yes. So I mean, I think it's over after this weekend. This seems like one of those, month of May European pushes. I mean, that typically it's the 1st of May. Now it seems to be this long weekend because they need more time to organize, or more time to do it. What Germany has to understand, I mean, I understand there are European elections and all that, but it doesn't serve the image of Germany as a place where people want to invest. I mean, you've had Tesla invest, you've had Intel invest, you've had quite a lot of other companies invest in Germany. When they see things like that, I mean, these are 800 idiots. Sorry to call them idiots, but that's what it is.
No, they are.
and well-fed and obviously well-groomed. If you look at them, they don't look as if they're missing much in their life other than happiness. So when you see that, it's just a shame that this will be now all over the press, because, as somebody in the comments said, Tesla will make, this is good for clicks. So these headlines are going to be used over and over and over again because of 800 people that just felt that they have to show their far left Antifa agenda here. And German police is obviously too soft with them, as they were with those that were living in the forests. I remember a couple of weeks ago with the electricity cut. So nothing ever came out of that either. So it's just, I don't think it's the 800 protesters that give Germany the bad image, but it is the lack of follow-up by police and judicial to make sure that this won't happen again, or at least that they go in some way punished. And the fact that there is no punishment doesn't reflect well on Germany, and it may work out for their elections, but it doesn't work out in the long run. I don't think so.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to point out something here. That's absolutely true. And additionally to that, we as Germany, or in Germany, we still compete with all the other countries in Europe, actually, of course. And when you see, for example, a country like Hungary, where, the state is right-leaning. Absolutely. Orban, maybe a doofus. You could say that. You could say that they are also carving out free press. That's what they are doing right now. That's also true. But they have 9% income tax. 16% income tax and 9% corporate tax, for example. This is very attractive for companies, and they have a stricter policing there.
Yeah, and
Also,
BYD
so
went there.
yeah,
BYD looked at
exactly.
every place and went
Mhm.
there, and that's
Exactly.
and that's going to happen again. And I don't know whether you saw it, but yesterday the Hungarian what is it, prime minister there, and the Chinese president were handshaking again. I mean, I know it's a competitive market, but at one point they have to realize: do they want to pander to their electors because in a couple of weeks there are elections, or do they want to save their economy? And at one point, maybe good to switch on the light.
Yeah, and especially you have to see that the elections go both ways. Of course, if you're a conservative party, you want to show strength, of course, but it's like this balance act. But like always, German politicians work on eggshells, or they don't really follow through. It's ridiculous because that's what I meant. The separation of the political spectrum in Germany also will the gap will expand more and more, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think this was obviously very helpful, Jan, for just like coming on board and just kind of giving us the update, boots on the ground, and really just the political state there is, and just really helping us set I would say more of set the record straight, just kind of provide more context on what the reality is out there. So thank you for joining last minute, but we're about a little bit past 7 minutes. So unless there's anything else to ask Jan, our soldier on the ground in Germany, we can wrap up. But yeah, so first off, thank you again for all of our regular hosts for being here. They're all tagged on X, so please follow them, or they're in the YouTube description. And then if you are watching on YouTube, go find Jan as well on Tesla Fix, or his handle. If you just type in Tesla Fix, you'll find it as well. Give him a follow and check out his views of Tesla from a German perspective. And so he is the boots on the ground out in Europe. So thank you again, everyone. Never a dull moment in the Tesla world. I mean, we're to the point this I'm waking up and then Jan's literally pinging me halfway through, and it's like, it's just because it's, that's how global this community is, but that's how crazy things are all the time with Tesla. So great to have everyone on. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
Sorry. Actually, one last thing. One last plug. So one last
yes,
plug.
of course.
The X Takeover. If you are actually, it's a takeover plug. If you are free at the end of this month, if you need to go to Flachau, Austria, May 24th through the 26th in Austria. I know Alexandra will be there. I think Jan, you'll be a speaker there as well. So make sure you go and TeslaTakeoverEurope.com, get tickets there. But also too, for our event, there's going to be the X Takeover, which is happening in July. It is the 27th through the 28th of July in San Luis Obispo. I know that a lot of the people on here are actually speaking at the event. So please go to xtakeover.com. And then, Joe, do you want to just give us a quick look at the swag that you're wearing?
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, this is a full zip hoodie. It's got the Takeover here patch, and there's also, it says Takeover on the back. It's in a Chanel pattern. The hoodie. Oops, I don't know if you can see that.
It says Takeover on the top.
That's boy.
It's only in gray, or you got other colors?
No, I did only this color. Because last year I was going to do black, and I didn't do black.
The girls a bit, just a white or a red.
I'll order one immediately. I have to tell you that I like the swag a lot. Since I'm a graphics designer, I like this very much. Yeah.
Well, awesome. So check out TeslaTakeoverEurope.com or xtakeover.com as well. We would love to see you there. Thank you for supporting these community events. And have a great week, everyone.